Oftentimes in human history, when great leaders fall, many try to fill the shoes of the one who had gone before them to varying degrees of success. Likewise, it is with nations and empires who by their past glory inspire attempts to supersede them. The decentralized Ukrainian kingdom of Rus, later referred to as Ruthenia by Western historians, had spawned several different successor states in this manner after the invasion of their homeland by the Mongols. These successor states included those such as the Kingdom of Volodymyr Suzdal in the northeast and the mercantile city of Novgorod. However, none could truly claim to be the legitimate successors of the great Rus kingdom of centuries old, much like the Kingdom of Galicia-Volhynia. Welcome to the Diadokoi YouTube channel, where today we will be exploring the rich history of Galicia-Volhynia. As we are a relatively new YouTube channel, we humbly ask you to please like and subscribe if you find this video entertaining and informative. This will help us grow as a channel and be able to provide more content to you, our viewers. Thank you, and we will now continue with the video. During the year 1199, Roman Mstislavic had unified the land of Galicia with the neighboring Volhynia. Roman gained much fame soon after this unification by furthering his domain outwards once more, bringing the lands of Yaroslav under his rule, as well as the historic city of Kyiv and the surrounding territory. Though it had been ravaged and sacked years earlier in 1169 by Andrei Bogolyubsky, the city's significance gave Roman the ability to stake his claim as the true successor of the great Kyivan Rus Empire. Many, however, disbelieved him, especially the nobles in Volodymyr Suzdal, whose armies took part in the sack of Kyiv 30 years prior. They believed that due to the dilapidated state of the city, it was no longer important to the culture of the Rus people, and so they sought to distance themselves from their southern counterparts. Roman, as Knyaz, decided that he ought to further his claim by expanding against his enemies. He conducted raids and conquests into Polish territory, and managed to expand his border into Lithuania as well. As he did this, he made sure to keep relations positive with his much more powerful neighbors, the Holy Roman Empire to the west, and the Byzantine Empire to the south. The Pope in Rome had noticed his dedication, and offered him to be crowned King of Rus, officially in the eyes of the West. However, he decided to decline this offer, saying that he did not need outside help to assert his claim. He was also concerned with the riskiness of the action, as it would not sit well with many of his neighbors, who he was constantly trying to convince of unification. In 1205, just after the sack of Constantinople, Roman's forces were ambushed while on campaign along the Polish borderlands. During this brawl, he was struck down and killed, leaving his domain to an uncertain future. Many knyazes and boyars split up his domain and forced his family to leave Kyiv. Nowhere to go, they fled first to Volhynia and then to Poland later on. During the control of the new decentralized realm, many surrounding nations such as Hungary, the Teutonic Order, and old enemies like Lithuania made plans to grab as much territory as they could from the previously stable land. Roman's two sons, Danilo and Vasilko, returned to claim their father's title and successfully took control of Volhynia. After this, they moved to reclaim Galicia, eventually taking it from the Prince of Chernihiv. It should be noted that by this time, the brothers had been involved much with the Mongol invaders, Danilo being present at the Battle of the River Kalka himself. After his conquest, Danilo would move on to Kyiv, attempting to install himself as the new king of Rus, yet to no avail, as he was forced to flee from the city soon after. He would first show his excellent leadership in his battle with the Knyaz Alexander in 1234, where his victory allowed him to capture all of Belz. After this battle, the two brothers would finally be seen as formidable by the rest of the Rus states. 2 years later, in 1236, Michael of Chernihiv, who had the grand city of Kyiv in his possession and was married to Danilo's sister, begged for help, as the Mongol army led by Batu Khan approached. The two brothers sent an army led by a boyar Dmitro to defend the city, but the overwhelming Mongol force would eventually breach the city walls in December 1240. And despite the fierce resistance, the city was sacked. Many lands of the Rus would be pillaged and sacked by the Khan following this event. Danilo could not be present himself, as in 1238, 2 years prior to the fall of the city, tensions with the Teutonic Order rose to an all-time high. While the city burned, he was preparing his armies for a possible fight with the Crusader states to the north. The Teutonic Order, themselves recently helping to establish the Livonian Brotherhood, had been collaborating with the Duke of Prussia, Conrad I. After taking the small Ukrainian town of Dorohoshin, the Prussian Knight Order of Dobrzyń was moved out of their homeland to protect the new Teutonic holding. This posed a serious threat to Danilo's rule, as it meant that not one, but 2 enemy Knight Orders were stationed along his border. Dorohoshin was also an extremely important trade site for the surrounding Ukrainian lands, itself being situated on a river. The Ruthenian king knew he could not waste any more time in challenging the invaders, and so he marched towards the town, sending a message to the Teutons in advance about his plans. Instead of telling them about his real intentions, however, he fooled them into thinking that the army marching towards their border was instead intended to attack their common enemy, the Lithuanians. Caught off guard, the knights were completely taken back when Danilo had arrived at Dorohoshin. Fortunately for them, though, Danilo's army was not sizable enough to attempt a siege of the town, and was running low on supplies anyway. Danilo knew that if he did not force a battle soon, his plotting would all be in vain. His only attempt would be to bait them into sallying out for a battle, and even then, he would have to find a way to counter the experienced heavy cavalry the Order was renowned for. The chronicles of the Ruthenian kingdom describe the ensuing battle. When facing the Teutons, Danilo would first send his infantry supported by a small force of crossbowmen, archers, and horse archers. The Teutons relied on many heavy cavalry troops, who were usually knights with a large number of crossbowmen who showered enemies with bolts and shocked enemy troops with cavalry. They would apply this strategy in this battle. The Ruthenian army was able to defend against the heavy charge with the use of many crossbow rounds and a strong spear wall. Surrounding the battlefield was a large forest, in which heavy and light Rus cavalry was placed. They would promptly charge into the flanks of their enemies and encircle them, granting them a decisive victory. The majority of the knights were surrounded and captured, including Magister Brunin, the leader of the Knights of Dobrzyń. After this, in 1245, the major battle of Yaroslav, fought by Danilo and Vasilko against the Hungarians and Poles, resulted in a decisive victory for the two brothers. Many of the Hungarian nobles in the Battle of Yaroslav were captured, and later used as leverage during peace talks with the Hungarian king. This resulted in the creation of the Hungarian-Ruthenian alliance, formalized through the marriage of Danilo's son, Lev, and the Hungarian princess, Constance. After his numerous campaigns, Danilo was forced to start paying hefty tributes to the ever-growing and much more powerful Mongols. During this time, many of the other Rus states who had been conquered by the invaders still, though part of the Mongol Empire, accepted Danilo as their king. Seeing as more and more outside threats to the kingdom arose, Danilo would reform the military structure of the army so that it would be similar in effectiveness to the Mongols. A cavalry-based force was to be created, which had a large contingent of light cavalry mounting the Bamat horses, and another of heavy cataphract-like Rusin cavalry. These heavily armored troops would be even more so than their knight counterparts. Strong emphasis would be placed on crossbowmen, and since they were easier to train, these men were instructed to take advantage of exposed enemy flanks and pelt them with bolts. Spearmen were taught to protect the crossbowmen at all costs, and to not let enemy cavalry get close to them. This army was to be a professional standing army, consisting of thousands of men ready to fight at a moment's notice. Though not confirmed, it is possible that this army was utilizing wagons in warfare, which would make them one of the first European nations to do so. Danilo, seeking to loosen the grasp of the Mongols over his land, coordinated with his newfound allies, the Hungarians, to reach out to the Pope. Unlike his father Roman, Danilo was willing to accept papal authority over the lands of Ukraine in exchange for help from other Catholic nations. Pope Innocent IV accepted the proposal instantly, sending a papal legate to crown him king of all Rus. However, miscommunication caused turmoil to rise quickly, as Danilo's reason for accepting papal authority was that he was expecting a crusade to be called against the Mongols. Due to this crusade never being called, he never converted. Yet in the eyes of the West and the Pope, he was still the legitimate king of all Rus. With the backing of nearly half of Europe and most Rus states, it is safe to say that historically, Danilo's kingdom was the true successor of the Great Rus Empire. Though many today often say that Yaroslav II of Volodymyr Suzdal or Alexander Nevsky of Novgorod was the successor to the Rus, a critical analysis of history clearly indicates contrary to that opinion. Unlike Yaroslav or Nevsky, Danilo actually received recognition for his rightly proclaimed title. The ambition of the king would not end there, and Danilo would march on Lithuania and successfully conquer into the land known as White Ruthenia in 1254. Soon, however, he would make peace with the Lithuanian king Mindaugas, arranging a political marriage between the two nations. This marriage would also create an alliance between Lithuania and Ruthenia, which was heavily intended to be aimed against the Mongols. From 1254 to 1255, the Ruthenian army would successfully fend off the Mongol army, defeating Ordokon's son, Karimsa. The Ruthenian king would later seek to free Kyiv of Mongol rule. However, this would never come to fruition, as Ukrainian and Lithuanian relations soured. Lithuania, after learning of the intent of the Rus to reconquer Kyiv, moved away from the alliance, as they themselves held this ambition. In 1256, with the death of the Kunyas of White Ruthenia, Roman Danilovich, Lithuania would restore its prior borders in White Ruthenia. Despite initial success, the year 1258 would see the arrival of a massive Mongol army led by Burundai Khan, together with Nogay Khan. Burundai offered an ultimatum to Danilo in which he would have to destroy fortifications in several towns or see the destruction of his kingdom. Seeing that he had no available aid, or a large enough army to face the Mongol force, the king agreed. The two Khans would later march on the Lithuanians, avenging their raids on the Mongol territories. The Khans would later demand Danilo's assistance in their attack on Poland, where Sandomierz, Krakow, and many other cities would be sacked. Ruthenia would once again be forced to pay tribute to the Golden Horde, and had to bear much maltreatment from their new overlord. In 1264, the great king Danilo Romanovich would die peacefully in the city of Holm, passing his crown to his brother Vasilko, and later to his son Lev. Danilo would to this day be remembered as one of the greatest kings of Ruthenia and Ukraine, creating a powerful kingdom against all odds and avenging his father's legacy. Unfortunately, many of his achievements would be forgotten and ignored in discussions on Rus. Thank you for watching our video on the Galicia-Volhynian Kingdom, the true successor to the Kyivan Rus. We hope you enjoyed this video, and we once again ask that you leave a like and subscribe if you would like to see more from us. We also ask that you check our Twitter page, and similarly, give us a follow for updates on upcoming content. We would like to thank our patron, 2100AB, for continuing to support the channel. If you have a video that you would like us to cover, you can donate to our Patreon in the link in the description below and request a video topic. Once again, we thank you, and we hope to see you next time.